acting kind of finicky. But here I am. Welcome, Jelly Rollers. We are doing the pillow of the month, but this one could also be a cute table runner or even a chat mat or a placemat. So I'm going to show you what we're about to do. So for those of you who are new to the channel, I put free content out on my website, and all you got to do is download it. You can just lower this camera a little bit so you can see me. So my name's Yvonne. Welcome to the Jelly Roll Club, and let me show you where to find the patterns. I've linked the Pillow of the Month handout at the top, but let me just show you my desktop. And so there we have it. So if you go to www.jellyrollclub.com, I have left up all of the pillows of the month. These are great for placemats, wall hangings, table runners, whatever you want to turn them into. If you want to make gifts for some friends and they have a birth month that you're looking for, I have all of the things. But today we're going to start with October. And so I'm going to click on that so you can see what we have. So this one is called Hey Boo, and we're making a fun, spooky pillow. So this is what we're going to be working with. We're going to use jelly roll strips, and we're going to be spelling out the word boo. And so I have a cutting diagram because there's a lot of small pieces for this one. So I hope you guys like it. And hello, everybody out there that just joined us. Okay, so today we're going to be putting these pieces together, and I have a little bit of bonus content. I have a little ghost that's been reversed and a little spooky house in case you want to make some mug rugs for some friends. All right, that's it. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and let me show you what I've got. For this particular project, you did not need to have any kind of special template of any sort, and so let me just kind of move my camera so you can see. And so what I did is I started cutting. I have 1.5 inch pieces that are by 10.5, and these are to put in between my letters. They're just filler pieces, and so I needed at least 3 of that. I have a little stack of 2.5 inch strips of background that I'm going to be using to frame my boo once I make my boo. So this is extra. You don't have to do that, but I'm doing that. And then I started cutting all of my pieces and I started putting it together. So I just used 3 whole jelly roll strips. And for mine, I found this one that had these little pumpkins. I felt like that was perfect. And so if you look at your chart, it has all of your measurements. I'm going to pull it up just in case you haven't been able to download it. So I'm going to put it out there on, here we go. I'm going to put it on my desktop just so that you can see it. I'm going to go through it really quick. So on my desktop, I can go over here, Pillow of the Month. Let me open that up. And just let me show you the measurements just so you can see. If you notice for the letter O, you're going to need pieces that are 6.5 inches by 2.5 inches, and that's for the sides. You're going to need pieces that are 8.5 inches by 2.5 inches to go across the top. I've labeled these things that say EC in the corner. Those are easy corners, and I'm going to show you what those are in just a second. And then the next piece that you're going to need is a piece of background for the center that's like 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches. And so that's the first block we're going to do. So let me show you what I've got here. All right, so what I did to my 6.5 inch pieces, I'm going to start at the top of my block, is I've taken and I've drawn a line. And for mine, I literally just used a white Crayola colored pencil. Most of your kids and grandkids probably have them in their coloring sets, and they don't even use them. So I love these because they wash right out, and the iron actually takes it off. It's like wax. So I drew my lines, and I stitched along those lines for my easy corners. And for that, I made 1, 2, 3, 4 of these units because I have 2 letter O's, and so I wanted 4 of those. And you guys can see where I drew the line, but I stitched just to the outside. And so these can now be flipped back just like this, and I'm going to trim the excess. So I'm going to go ahead and press those. I'm going to set those seams, and these are what are called easy corners. So I'm just going to flip over. So instead of cutting little triangles on the bias, you just draw that diagonal line and you put them back. And that's why they're called easy corners. And you need to make 4 of these. Like I said, whenever you draw that line, sew just to the outside so that when you fold this in half, it's going to sit perfectly the way you want it. And it's going to be the exact size that you need. This is especially important if you start doing pieces that are really tiny. So if you've ever sewn any of Lori Holt's patterns, she has little teeny tiny pieces and she loves easy corners. So they're great for that. The easy corners are 2.5 inches. I'm not sure where the link is taking you, but let me go ahead and share this link again, just in case it's taking you to the wrong place. I'm going to resend the link, okay? Let me send that really quick, and that should be it. Let me pin that at the top. And that should have replaced the pinned message. So hopefully it's taking you to the correct place. All right. So now that I have it, I have all 4 of my pieces. I'm going to trim off the easy corners. And these are jelly roll strips. So they're 2.5 inches wide by 8.5 inches across. And these are 2.5 inches. I'm just going to trim these off. Because now that I have them and I know that they're correct, now I can trim those. So I never trim my easy corners until after I've already checked and pressed and I know exactly what side to cut off, because you never want to chop off the wrong things. And so that's what my little easy corners are going to look like. So I'm just going to go ahead and chop these off. And these are a little bit too small to do anything with right now, so I'm just going to leave them in my scrap heap. Maybe someday I will make something with all of this quilt confetti, but I doubt it. All right. I have been busy sewing all day, working on my jackets. I'm making multiple, and so I've been having a good old time in my sewing room. All right. So I have these. And just so you can see in the pattern, I have listed orange, right, and black as my colors. You can use white, you can use brown, you can use tan, any color that is fall inspired. All right, so I have 4 of these pieces for my 2-letter O's. And now I need the sides. These rotate, so they're kind of mirror image. They should look like this. This would make a fun block too of some type. It looks like a little lantern. Ooh, I think I'm going to have to make a quilt pattern now. Look, friends. What a fun block that would make. Absolutely. Okay, I'm writing a new pattern. I'm not even finished with this one, and I'm already writing a new pattern. But yeah, look, you could turn this into a fun scrappy quilt. Call it lanterns. All right, maybe that's what we'll do. The next thing that I need to do for my centers is I'm going to take this 4.5 inch by 6.5 inch rectangle, and you're just going to sew your 2 strips on either side that are 2.5 by 6.5. You're just going to sew it on both sides, and you're going to press it so that the seams go outward. Once you've done that, then you're just going to add these pieces to the top and to the bottom to make the letter O, just like that. For those of you who are Ohio State fans, this would be a great quilt for somebody that loves Ohio State if you really wanted to make a bunch of O's. All right, so now I'm going to talk about the little ghost. I gave you guys a little ghost image, so if you guys want to draw a little ghost and have a little ghost peeking out of the O's, you can do that. I have little tiny ghosts, and I think I'm going to put them on the letter B. So if you can see, I drew a couple of little ghosts on fusible, and I'm going to put those on my letter B. But if you wanted to put the little ghosts that I gave you, you could put one going one direction and one the other on here. Yes, it does look like a snowman pattern. So I think that I'm definitely going to work on another. If you think I should work on another quilt pattern using this shape, let me know, and we will do that. I think that would be really fun. We could make snowmen. We could make lots of things. Okay, so I'm going to just press these really well. Make sure they're good and flat. And now I'm going to go over here to my machine, and I'm going to sew them together. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab both of these. And I'm just going to take and line them up so that they both go the same way. I like to assembly line sew anytime that I can do that. Makes my life easier. And if you sewed correctly, these should line up. And you don't really need to pin because you're not really matching anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and just line that up. Coax that with my fingers. And I'm sewing them across the bottom first, and then across the other side, which is the top. And I'm going to make sure that these little easy corners are on the outside. And so I'm going to flip that over. And let me just keep going. All right. Got to make sure that my seam allowance is a 1/4 inch and not too big because it'll throw it off. All right, so now that I have this and I'm at the end, then I can flip this around and use the other side and simply do the same thing. I don't even have to break these threads, but I will. And so now I'm just going to flip it around and do the same exact thing. I'm going to put this fabric to the bottom and I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to just start sewing just like I did the other ones. I'm just going to line these up. This fabric has not been washed. So typically if I do something like this, I like to use pre-washed fabric. But sometimes I have a stack of fabric that's on the other side of my sewing room. I have it labeled washed and unwashed. And typically I do not wash my jelly rolls. And when I do that, I also do not wash the background. But typically if I'm making something that I don't want it to pucker and I don't want it to be crinkly, then I will pre-wash. And I do that even with my jelly rolls. I pre-wash them by sticking them in a bucket with warm water. Rinsing them really, really well, and then I can either hang them up to dry or put them in a laundry bag and stick them in the dryer, and they usually come out just fine, not too bad. But if you need them to be exactly 2.5 inches and they're pre-purchased, you probably don't want to wash them because you do lose a little bit of size. This particular jelly roll is a little tiny bit wider than 2.5, and sometimes that happens. So you really got to measure your pre-purchased jelly rolls. All right, so these look like they're ready, and I'm going to bring them over here and give them a press. All right, so let's see what we have right here. And I'm going to grab the other one off the machine. Let me see what I have. All right, the first thing that I'm going to do is just kind of set these seams. And I do that. I do have water in my iron tonight because I am steaming these. And I should have a 1/4 inch seam on this side and this side. And if it looks really weird like this, that's what I want because that is my 1/4 inch seam. So if it's got this weird little bump, then that is correct. All right. Oh, there we have it. This looks pretty good. When you have a seam like this in the middle, you're going to want to press it outward like this. And I always press it again from the back just to make sure that my seams are nice and flat. Especially if I'm going to be doing a lot of quilting on it, I want those seams to be flat. All right, so there's one of my O's. I think that looks really, really nice. And then I'll just do the other one. Same thing. Set those seams. You can finger press it if you want. It makes it lay flat really quick. So you can do your fingers. And then just use your nice hot dry iron. Then I will just take this and press it again. All right. So there we have it. So now I have these two O's, and I'm going to join them by using a tiny strip that's 1.5 inches by 10.5 inches in the middle. Because what I don't want is for my, my two O's to end up like this and just be one continuous block. So I'm going to go ahead and add to this side, this right here, and this is 10.5 inches. And so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to line this up and sew it down that side. But I'll do that in just a second. So that's one of my pieces. The next thing that I want to build for this particular block is the letter B. The letter B is a little bit more complicated and it has some weird measurements. So we're going to start the letter B by building the middle. And so this middle on the letter B is 2 inches wide by 4.5 inches. So it's a little bit skinnier. Then these two pieces are 2 3/4, so they're wider than a jelly roll. So this is 2 3/4, 2 3/4 by 4.5 inches. Okay? And to this unit, I'm going to add these little ghosts that you have that I created. I'm going to go ahead and add those to my letter B. I just kind of freehanded these little guys onto some white fabric. And so I'm just going to attach them on there. Try to turn your scissors so they don't have weird little bumps on their heads. And I just kind of freehand sketch them out. They don't have to be perfect. They're little ghosts. And I'm just going to freely add those in there. So I think I'm going to do one direction and one the other. Grab a pin here. And this is Hell on Wonder Under, ultra lightweight. And I'm going to add this little ghost down here at the bottom. And so he's going to be peeking out. I could add him up here at the top, just like this. And he's going to be peeking out, and then I could add his friend. So this one goes the other direction. So I have one going one direction, one going the other, because I thought that would look cute on my letter B. So we'll see. I might change my mind and not do it at all. So we'll have to look at it. I'll let you guys decide. A little ghost or no little ghost for this. And so I'm just going to freehand trim it. If you want to add a slightly larger ghost to your O's, I've added them to the pattern, so you can do that. All right. Now that I have this, I can add this little guy down here to the bottom. He'd be overlapping, so I think I will. I think I like this. I'm going to go ahead and add this here. And he's going to have little eyeballs, which I'm going to have to come back and embroider. I'm sorry, friends. My allergies are really killing me. This ragweed season is probably the worst for me. All right, so I have a couple little eyes I'm going to add to mine. And these are just permanent fabric markers, just so that I can come back and add stuff to my little ghost. But my little ghost is going to have 2 little eyeballs like this. And a little mouth. Oh, just like that. And this little guy is going to have 2 little eyes like this. They look like little seeds and a little mouth, just like that. So I think I'm going to add 2 little ghosts to the center of my quilt, and then I'm just going to press these down. And there we have it. And so now my letter B is going to have little ghosts in the middle. Now the piece that goes to the outside of my letter B is just a big piece that is 10.5 inches long by 2.5 inches. And then this is going to have this segment in the middle. I also need, for my letter B, is 2 pieces with easy corners, just like the ones you saw. I'm going to trim these off. One for the top and one for the bottom that are mirror imaged. So my little ghosts are sticking out right there. And you want to add those before you sew the block together. If you're going to do a little ghost, I just kind of traced mine. Freestyle. And I need one headed up here at the top. So I've got this piece here is 6.5 with an easy corner that's 2.5. This one is 6.5 with an easy corner that's 2.5. I need a 10.5 inch piece, and then I need something for over here. These pieces are kind of small, so let me show you what I have. And to complete my bee, I have a 2.5-inch square that goes in this segment and a 2.5-inch square that goes there. And then to fill the bee, I have these little pieces that are 1.5 inches by 2.5 inches. So I have 2 of them. And then they have opposite little, these opposite little easy corners. So I'm going to sew these. I need to come across here, and then I'm going to start joining this letter B. Okay? Am I making sense? Let me just go slow one more time. These are 2.5 inches by 1.5. There's 2 of them. This is 2.5 inches by 1.5. These are 1.5 by 1.5, and they have easy corners going the opposite direction. One's going up, one's going down. These are 2.5-inch squares. These are going top and bottom, and these pieces here are 6.5 by 2.5 with a 2.5-inch easy corner. And then this last big piece is 10.5. All right, so let's go ahead and start assembling all of this. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to sew the 2 little easy corners, and I'm going to add these squares after. So let me go take these to the machine, and I'll be right back. And so these are not too painful. Like I said, one way that I make sure that these are accurate is by sewing on the opposite side of that drawn line, just to the right of it. And just a thread. And that just ensures that my easy corners, when I press them, are not going to lose their shape, and they're going to be the correct size. All right, so that's the first thing that I need. Let me grab these out. I'm using black thread typically when I sew with black background. I do like to use black thread, but sometimes I use white thread so you guys can see what I'm doing. All right. So I have both of these little guys, and I have to just flip them up and down. I'm going to flip them like this. And you're going to have one like this and one like this, and they're going to match up together in the middle to make that bee. So I'm just going to clip this. And I'm going to clip it again, and then I'm going to match these center pieces and then sew them together. So I'm going to go right here. Now, in order for those to match perfectly, I'm going to want to take one of these and turn the seam to the inside like this, because that will ensure that my seams right there nest when these 2 come together. So I will nest those by pinching them in the middle and making sure that one seam is going down and one seam is going up, and then I'm going to sew them together. And by doing that, I'm going to make that little V that's going to give me that perfect little thing. And if you want to pop a pin in there just to hold it, that's always a good idea. And now I'm going to go sew this. I'm going to start on this side and sew down, and I'll bring it right back. You can use Inktense pencils for the eyes, so I'll just stop and answer questions here in a second. And you can also use Micron Pigma pens for the eyes if you want to. So if you want your little ghost to have spooky little eyes that are kind of vacant, you can do that. I would just avoid a Sharpie because Sharpies will fade over time. They're not as permanent as archival inks or Inktense pencils. All right. Hopefully I gave it enough of a seam allowance. I was trying to be a little bit careful. So it looks a little bit scant, but we'll see. Let's check it out. All right, so I've got, all right, and look at how perfectly that matched, and that's what I was going for. See that right there? And then this one, it doesn't matter which direction you press it because it's not going to match another seam. And so mainly I was just trying to make sure that my bee had a perfect point in the middle. All right, so now I'm going to put this one down and sew on one side and then sew the other one on the other side. So let me go over to the machine. Whenever you have little tiny pieces that you have to match, you just have to be sure you flip those seams back and forth. All right, so now I'm going to go like this. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to swing this around, open it, and I'm going to attach the other piece. So I have one on one side and one on the other, like that. And I'm just going to sew straight down the side. I always clip that thread once I get that needle in there, just so that it doesn't pull. Because the last thing you want is a little bird's nest. All right. And this little middle section is almost ready. This is looking cute. What do you guys think? You guys gonna give this one a thumbs up? I think this one is looking really cute. All right, so now I'm gonna look at which way these seams wanna go. And to reduce the bulk, when I quilt this, I'm gonna put these seams to the outside. And anytime that you're thinking about that, just think about which direction. Now, I'm going to show you something right here. Do you see how I went off center? I can tell right away when I press because it's kind of bowing on me. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to come back and re-sew that seam, because what I really don't want is for my letter B to have a wobble in it. And so if that ever happens to you, that's how you fix it. You just come in here and you can just sew again from the side that was too scant, and you come off the side. And that just ensures that your pieces are going to lay flat and they're going to look good. And so that's it. All right, so now that I have this, I'm going to make sure I press it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach it to this section that has the little ghosts. So these two go together, and I'm going to sew those down. So I'm going to match this, and I'm going to sew 1/4 inch. I am taking my little ghost pieces. They go like this. I'm going to match this side that has no notch over here, and I'm going to take it over to the machine and I'm going to sew it. And where this was distorted, I just need to make sure that it lines up correctly. Okay. I'm going to give it a little press and sew a 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to bring it back, and then I'm going to attach the top and the bottom before we add the side. And I think this is going to be really cute. Where can you put the haunted house? You can put the haunted house wherever you want to. You could superimpose it over the bee and make it a different color. You can add it to the end of your pillow. You could put it behind the boo. You can do whatever you want with it. It's just a bonus content. You don't even have to add it at all if you don't want to. Or you can turn it into a tiny little mug rug. So the haunted house is just bonus material. All right, here I go. Sewing this to the end just like it goes like this. Once I swing that around, I'm going to press that out so I can attach the top and the bottom. And I think this is looking really, really cute. I don't know. What do you guys think? All right, so now I'm going to look at which direction this seam wants to go, and it's definitely going to go this direction, because if I put it to the inside, I'm going to have way too much bulk right there. So I'm going to put it to the outside. So my little ghosts are now trapped in there. At least the bottom one is. And I like how that's looking. So it's going to look like this. I'm going to attach this there, and I'm going to attach this to the bottom. So I'm just going to sew both of these ends on, so the top and bottom, before we do our final piece. And while I'm there, I'm going to go ahead and add, remember I had this little middle strip in here? I'm going to go ahead and add a middle strip to that. So let me go ahead and do that too while I'm over at the machine. And I'm going to add one on this one to connect these letters. All right, so here we go. This one goes together pretty fast, as you can see. I'm going to start by adding this 1.5 inch piece by 10.5 inch piece to the side of this. And I've cut it straight of grain so it has no wiggle in it. And I want to do that just to help my my overall design just be nice and straight. So anytime that you can cut pieces straight of grain, you should do that. And then when you're sewing, I've got a nice brand new needle, and then I'm just using both of my hands to guide my fabric, and that just helps it to stay straighter. All right. Remember, we're adding the top and the bottom to this now. That will be super cute. And then I'm going to swing this around, cut this thing off, my little leader ender, just so that I can get it from under here. I'm going to snip it apart from its friend, and then I'm going to sew the other side on. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that and sew the other side. And these letters, they go together really quick. I think eventually I'm going to have an entire alphabet just made out of jelly roll strips. All right. Okay, we're getting places now. Let's see what we have. So I have the letter O. I'm going to go ahead and raise that camera just so you have a bigger view of what I'm doing. This right here, I'm just going to press it and press it open. I'm going to attach this O onto here as I sew the next piece on. And these jelly roll strips are a tiny bit wider than 2.5 inches, so I'm ending up with a real generous seam allowance. All right. Okay, that's what I'm going for. I think I love these little guys sticking in the little windows of the letter B. I think that looks pretty good. All right, I'm going to add this big guy here, 10.5 inches. And I'm going to add him to that side. And then I'm going to join this O to this side. So I'm going to add the O to here. And then I need to add one more 2.5 inch strip to this side. So I'm going to be doing some more sewing so that you guys can see all of my final letters put together, because I want to put them together. I haven't decided if this is going to be a pillow or if this is going to actually be like a table runner. I don't know. I'm torn. How are you guys going to use yours? Are you going to turn it into a pillow or a table runner? I think this would look great on a coffee table. Or even a tabletop of any type, really. All right, and we're going to go there. We're going to add this side, the outside of the B. And I like to sew with my seam allowances up so they don't get flipped on me. And then I'm just going to line them up right here with my finger and kind of guide the entire thing. Whenever you sew long stretches of fabric like this, you really have to keep it from kind of wobbling everywhere. My feed dogs, I don't know about your machine, make my fabric want to kind of travel everywhere. And I don't like that. I kind of got to watch that. All right, so this one has a piece on this side, and then this one gets attached. So if you remember, I have my two O's, and I've got to attach the next one to the side. So one O has got the one going towards the B, and the other one has the other piece that's attached to the other O. All right. Whenever you're designing a quilt and you're graphing it out on graph paper, which is one of the things I like to do, or you're using quilt design software, which is my next step, you don't always know exactly how it's going to turn out. Like your vision may not always be the same as your finished piece. And so it's always interesting to me, because I do like to test these out before I work on them, is how these pieces end up looking once you start adding fabric to them. All right, so here we go. I have the letter B. I'm going to have to do a little bit of trimming. No, actually I don't. Looks pretty good. But I was going to have to trim that, but there's going to be some minimal trimming. And then I have the 2 O's. I'm going to pull this one out like this. And then these are going to go this way. The seam allowances wanted to go to the inside, which is the natural way for them to go. And then I'm going to do the last thing I'm going to attach is this letter on here. So I'm going to center that. I might need to do a little trimming because that B is a tiny bit taller than my O. And so I'm just going to sliver trim that just because I know that these jelly rolls ended up being actually a tiny bit wider than my other strips. And so I'm going to just trim those little teeth off. And so these little teeth are coming off. As you can see, I just sliver trimmed it. But that's going to make all the difference in the world when I go to line it up. It's just getting all those little teeth off of there. So I sliver trimmed that. I'm going to get this nice and straight on this side. And there we go. Much better. I'm going to remove the little tiny teeth that are hanging out on this side. And I'm just barely sliver trimming it. And that's just so that it'll line up nicely. All right, so now I'm going to lay this on top. And now I'm getting what I want. Okay, so I'm going to take it to the machine, and we are almost done. Okay, so here we go. Back to the machine one last time. Lining up those edges. Sometimes you have to lick your fingers to get them where you want them to go. Don't like licking my fingers when I'm sewing, but sometimes I do. And you're making sure that those seams are going the right way. All right. All right, let's take a look and let's see if this turned out the way I envisioned, and I think it did. Let's look. Ooh, yes. How about that, friends? You pull this camera way up. This says boo, and it has 2 little ghosts right here. I might, just might, put another little peekaboo ghost on either side of this. I haven't decided yet, but I might make a second one and put it the opposite direction so that you can read it from either side and make myself an extra long table runner. I think that might be great. And then the last thing that I want to do with this entire project is I'm going to add a big strip across the top like this, and then a big strip across the bottom like this, a 2.5-inch strip to kind of frame the entire thing. And that is it, friends. Look at how easy that was. And so this would be great because I think I'm going to make a twin and just send it in the opposite direction. So one is read this direction and one is read in the other direction. Okay, everybody, that is it. I think this is going to be super cute. If you can see it, this is the entire block, and I like how it turned out. And like I said, I think I'm going to make a second one. It has these little pumpkins, And I'm going to go ahead and quilt it maybe with some spider webs in the corner. So I'm thinking of maybe even doing some spooky little spider webs. So if you look down here inside the O's, one of the things you could do when you're quilting is literally just do a cobweb. And to do that, you would just literally just draw a line straight down like this and connect it to the other side. You would draw a line this way and connect it up here, and then do a line this way and have like 3 lines and then connect that like a spider web. And so you're just going to draw these lines that go like this, and you would want to connect that when you quilt to make yourself a spooky little spider web. So if you wanted to, that would be a really fun design. So if you look at mine, I've added that spooky little spider web, and I could use a little bit of kind of silver metallic quilting. And if I wanted to, I could do a spider web going the opposite direction. And so I would just do a diagonal line like this, and you're going to bring these lines out from the center like this, and then you just connect them like that to make your little spooky little spider web. So if you want to quilt that with a spooky little spider web, I think that would be a lot of fun. And so just like that, I made a second spider web, and I think that's what I'm going to put on there, especially if you have a button that looks like a spider. I think that would be great. How do I stitch around the ghost edges? I'm going to take and I'm just going to stitch with a white thread, and I'm going to do a blanket stitch around these little ghosts. Just a little white blanket stitch so it blends right in. And that's it, friends. Put a little spider web in there, put a little embellishment, and put a couple of little ghosts hanging out somewhere in your table runner, pillow, whatever you want to turn this into. And I hope that you guys have an amazing and wonderful National Jelly Roll Day. I was working in my sewing room all day, and I made myself a huge stack of these because these are going in my jacket. So these are all the beautiful colors I've been sewing together, and I'm going to put all of these in my Jelly Roll jacket. So I've got all of the pieces done, and I'm ready for that project. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. It is 8:43. And we are done with this table runner of the month, or placemat of the month, or pillow of the month, however you want to use it. I'll let you guys know what I do with this. Next Sunday, we have, well, actually tomorrow we have Krabby Patty. And then next Sunday, we're continuing with our jacket. We got a lot of stuff going on, and I will update the calendar for October, and I will add that to the website and to the channel. All right. Quilted coat, not tomorrow, but 1 week from tomorrow. So let me just pull up the calendar in case some of you guys haven't seen it. Let me share my desktop. If you go to the Facebook page, there we go. Let me close all of this. Too many things on my computer. All right, if you go to the Facebook page and you look at the calendar, so all you have to do is look under photos. It'll show you the calendar. And our next date that we're together, Quilted Jacket Part 2, is Sunday the 28th. Tomorrow, Sunday the 21st, is Krabby Patty. And that's it, friends. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And I will see you guys later. Keep sewing. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye. I'll see you guys later.